Chapter 6 Secret Doors. The days passed, blurring into each other. Dream and Nightmare enjoyed hanging out with their friends, exploring the village in the morning and returning for lunch in the afternoon and to further reading lessons. It wasn't that Nightmare didn't like Asgore and Toriel. In fact, he began to cherish them as deeply as Dream did. However, it still felt wrong to be so long away from their tree. One night, Nightmare woke as he felt Dream get up and heard the door curtain part. Unsure why he'd go outside, Nightmare quickly got up to follow. He caught a glimpse of his brother's shadow around the corner of the house, stretching in the moonlight. "Dream?" he said as the boy sat down, back against the wall. "Are you okay?" "Oh, Nightmare. Yeah, I'm okay," said Dream as Nightmare sat beside him. Both of them looked off into the distance, towards the falls and the tree above. "I like it here, but I think you're right," said Dream, pulling his knees up to his chest. "It feels wrong to be away for so long. We belong up there with it." A sigh of relief. It was nice to know that his brother felt the same. He leaned his head against Dream's shoulder, closing his eyes. Without realizing, they both fell asleep, giving their hosts quite the scare when they were found in the morning. This time, Dream would ask Asgore about letting them return to the tree, but the Monster King had the same answer as before, that they could only go to the tree during sacred holidays. And besides, not only was there a threat of that creature that attacked them on the first night, but the humans would surely kidnap them if they were found alone. Nightmare could sense a sadness growing in his brother, like a flower with too much shade. His pace slowed, he smiled less. In fact, his behavior became closer to match Nightmare's. 2 weeks had passed since they had come into the world of the living. One morning, Dream simply didn't get up for breakfast. "Dream, dear, are you feeling all right?" said Toriel, touching his head to check for fever. "I'm tired, and I'm not hungry," Dream moaned, hiding his face back in the blankets. "He's a little warm," she said, standing back up. "Is that bad?" Nightmare asked, still sitting next to his brother. Toriel gave a nod. "I'll make up some soup and tea to help him feel better." But he didn't feel better. When Toriel finally got Dream to sit up, he'd only have a few spoonfuls before going back to sleep. Noelle came around to ask for the boys, but would leave when Toriel told her Dream was under the weather. There was another thunderstorm. In the night, Dream woke up, coughing, and couldn't go back to sleep. Asgore worried Nightmare would get sick too, but he didn't show any symptoms. In the morning, they called for the medicine woman to examine Dream. Mildred was a scraggly lizard woman, flanked by her teenage granddaughter Alphys, carrying a basket of tools and herbs. Grumbling as she shuffled over to their cot, her glassy eyes and bony hands inspected Dream's sockets and inside his mouth. Looks like it should be just a cold, but it's worse than usual. Has he been eating?" "He hasn't been hungry." Toriel hovered over them, arms crossed in worry. "And what about the twin? He's been next to him the whole time?" "Yes, ma'am. I feel fine, though," said Nightmare. Something is draining your brother's energy more than just the cold. Alphys, in the basket, there should be some golden peels left." The lizard girl looked through the basket before pulling out a few dried apple skins. Though they were dull, they still had a metallic shimmer. She handed them to Toriel as Mildred continued. "It should help get him back his strength, but that's all that's left." "That's all? But the next holiday isn't for a week," said Toriel. "Then you may have to ask for the others, if they have any." After the old woman and her granddaughter left, Toriel fixed a tea with the apple peels. "I know you don't want to eat anything, but you must drink this, the peels and all," she said, having Dream sit up. Nightmare watched his brother slowly sip the tea, light coming back to his sockets. He was able to drink it all in a few minutes, brightness returning to his face. "That was good! I feel much better!" he beamed at Toriel. The Goat Queen's smile grew wide. "Oh, what a relief! Let's get some food in you, then." Dream ate 2 whole servings of mashed taters, carrots, and chicken with gravy before going right back into a nap. However, the next night he was coughing again. His weakness returned. "He really needs the fresh apples, Asgore," Toriel said to her husband that morning. However, Asgore's eyes had grown heavy and he shook his head. Tensions have grown more strained with the humans. They'll be keeping an eye on the falls, just as we are. We might not even be able to peacefully visit this holiday. Something must be done. Dream is suffering. He's so small, Asgore. I don't know how long he can be like this. What did she mean by that? Her words seemed carefully chosen as Nightmare sat nearby listening. With a heavy sigh, Asgore said he'd tell the humans what was happening to Dream and they needed the apples for his health. An hour after he left, Birdly, Noelle, Susie, and Chris gathered at Toriel's front door asking for the twins. Nightmare went out to them, feeling tired from all this swelling anxiety.
"We heard he was sick," said Birdly, rubbing his wings together in worry. "Is he going to be all right?"
I don't know. We've never been sick before. Nightmare shook his head. He's just tired all the time. He can barely eat. They say he needs the golden apples to get better. It's because we've been away from our tree for so long, I'm sure of it.
"You think so? Why aren't you sick then?" said Susie.
Nightmare shrugged. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I'm made of the magic from the dark apples? The negative feelings. Maybe being away from the tree doesn't affect me the same way.
"I'm really worried," said Noelle. "He's been sick for 3 days. People get sick longer than that. It's never a good thing." "Okay, then what are we waiting for? Let's get some apples ourselves," said Susie, holding up a fist. "Susie, are you serious?" said Birdly. "What about the treaty?"
"Treaty schmeely. Monsters and humans are always sneaking up to the tree for the golden apples," she said, looking to Nightmare.
"Waiting for permission is stupid. If Dream stays sick for much longer, it could really hurt him."
Nightmare recalled the mouse monster they met the day they came to life. It seems that even though they had rules against it, people were breaking the rules anyway. Looking over his shoulder, he made sure Toriel wasn't peeking from behind the curtain. He scooted in closer to them as they leaned down their heads. "Let's do it," he whispered. "Tonight. Asgore won't be in, but Toriel will be asleep. We'll grab a few apples and be back before anyone notices."
"All right, I'll grab some weapons to protect us," said Susie.
"I'll get torches," said Noelle.
"Whoa, we're really going to do this?" said Birdly, then nodded. "All right, we're going on a mission. That mission? Get the golden apples to cure Dream."
The four of them smiled and nodded. Chris just gave a nod, quietly following Susie's lead as they always had. And finally, Nightmare might get a moment to be close to the tree again. The light from the sky faded into dusk. This time, Nightmare and Toriel would have supper without Asgore. Dream still refused to wake. "Why isn't Asgore with us tonight, Toriel?" Nightmare asked. Toriel finished chewing the roasted snail in her mouth. "Talks with the humans have broken down. He needs to make sure the village remains secure through the night in case anything happens." Maybe trying for the apples tonight wasn't the best plan, but there was no taking it back. He knew the others would be waiting for him at the end of the main street towards the falls. And even if it was a bad time, or if he got in trouble, Dream needed those apples. It was hard to stay awake. He wanted so badly to curl up next to Dream to get his own rest, but he told himself things would only be normal again once Dream got better. When he finally heard Toriel snoring, he started to get up. Dream grabbed his wrist. Gazing down, Nightmare could make out his brother's faded golden eyelight. "I'll do anything to make you better again. I'll be back, I promise," he said. Dream didn't answer, his grip weakening as the sockets shut back to sleep. Nightmare tucked Dream's hand back under the blanket to be sure he'd be warm. On the wall, Toriel had installed 2 lower hooks, now donning a cloak for each of the brothers. Grabbing his own, he quietly placed it on before slipping into the moonlight. The moon was full, which made it easy for him to watch his steps and navigate the night. But that also meant anyone else in the darkness could see him too. He made his way down the main street. He'd spot Susie's hand in the alley wave him over. His 4 companions were already assembled. "Sorry, I can only tell Toriel's asleep when she starts to snore," Nightmare huffed. He felt his bones sting with excitement and mischief.
"Don't worry, it gave us time to find a route around the guards," Birdly whispered. "All the reserves are out tonight. I wonder if they're expecting something."
Nightmare nodded. Yeah, they think the humans might attack the village. Toriel said talks weren't going so well. Oh no! Noel covered her mouth. That's not good. That's really not good, said Susie. He felt a spike of fear in their souls and feared himself that they might change their minds on helping him. I mean, it probably won't happen, right? Asgore is just making the humans think twice by having everyone ready.
Yes, that would make sense, said Birdley. Also, I don't think we'll need the torches with the moon this bright. We should be there and back in a few minutes.
Oh, hey, I got our weapons too, said Susie, handing out sticks to each of them. They were sturdy sticks, but sticks nonetheless. You call these weapons? Said Nightmare, holding up his crooked stick.
Hey, no one exactly is handing out battle axes to 7-year-olds, Nighty.
Into the night, the 5 of them rushed off, hoods up, dodging around buildings and heading to the edge of town. There were more guards than usual, torches lit along the perimeter to help them keep watch. But Susie knew a guy who knew a blind spot around the watchtowers. They crouched down along a ridge lined with a fence separating 2 fields, pretty easily making their way to the forest unnoticed. All right, now what? Nightmare looked on ahead, but froze. The way the moonlight speckled through the leaves of the forest, though beautiful, suddenly turned everything into a maze. It looked like 3-dimensional ink spots, where he couldn't make sense of what was close and what was far away.
So, does anyone know the way to the cliff?
Said Noel, getting the same impression. I do, Chris uttered. The other 4 stared at the robed monster as they stepped forward and glanced back. Follow me.
Chris, are you sure? You're not even from around here. How would you know the way? Said Birdley.
But Chris continued onward, not slowing down, which urged the rest of them to catch up before they lost them in the foliage and shadows. The robed monster stepped with confidence, moving with ease through the forest, as the falls became more visible through the trees. Nightmare felt tense, though he wasn't quite sure why. Everything was going well so far, and maybe that was the problem. They found the incline within a few moments, but kept to the trees in case anyone was keeping watch on the cliffs. As they got closer to the tree, Nightmare could feel the dull ache in his bones easing. Reaching the top, Nightmare saw the white sea, though it was gray in the moonlight. And their tree. Oh, the tree. Unable to help himself, he ran ahead, past any apples that had fallen to the ground, and threw his arms around the trunk. Though his arms were too small to make a true hug of it. Heh, tree hugger. He heard Susie smirk, but ignored it. It just felt good to be close to it again, like a weight was lifted from his chest. Well, come on. We need to grab some of the golden apples, said Noel.
How many does Dream need? Said Birdley.
Nightmare got a hold of himself and looked at the others. I'm not sure. Maybe we carry 1 each? That will be plenty.
Crunch!
Everyone looked over as Susie bit into one of the apples.
Susie, those are for Dream, said Noelle, folding her arms.
What? Said the lizard girl, mouth full, as she took another bite and swallowed.
It's not like there isn't plenty here.
But she felt Nightmare's disapproving stare bearing down on her before tossing the rest of the apple aside and picked up a fresh one.
All right, it was just a snack, bro.
Nightmare sighed. All right, everyone take 2, 1 for Dream and 1 for yourselves, as thanks for helping me. The faces of the kids lit up as they gladly searched for 2 nice, round, golden apples, putting 1 in each of their pockets.
Hey, Nightmare, what would happen if we ate the dark apples anyway?
Said Susie, picking up 1 from the grass. Nightmare had just filled his pockets as well. I'm not sure. Everyone said they're bad, but I'm not sure what that means.
Heh, want to try one?
She said, holding it out to him. The sounds of horns echoed through the air, alarms of warning as the kids turned, looking over the falls. The warning signals came from the monster village, but blooms of smoke and fire rose a mile out eastward. What's that? Said Nightmare.
That's the human village, said Birdley,
before holding his head.
But wait, why is the human village on fire?
We should get back to Dream right away, said Noelle, already following after Chris, who rushed down the cliffside. The others in agreement ran after. What was happening? Weren't they the ones who were expecting to get attacked? No, there's no way Asgore would have been the type to attack the humans first. There had to be an explanation. However, as they headed to the end of the decline, Chris suddenly stopped, staring off into the woods. The others stopped behind them. Nightmare must have seen the same as Chris, for there were spots of torchlight moving swiftly through the forest, closer to the base of the falls. Suddenly, Chris changed course, running towards the lights.
Chris, wait! You're definitely going the wrong way! Called Birdley.
Chris, what's going on? What are you doing? Said Susie. The 4 children were left to glance at each other in confusion. With every second, Chris slipped further away. We can't leave them behind out here, said Noelle. What about my brother? Said Nightmare, anxious for every minute they delayed getting back. But Susie growled. I don't know, but Noelle is right. We're not going to leave without all of us together. Come on, she said, running after them. Birdley and Noelle did too, but Nightmare was hesitant. He had half a mind to head back to the village on his own, but with those torchlights wandering through the woods, what if they were humans? What if they caught him? Nightmare, come on! Noelle stopped a moment to call back. Balling up his fists, he wouldn't have a good explanation if something happened to the other kids, especially one good enough for Dream. Damn it, he couldn't leave them behind. Picking up his feet, he ran after, following behind Noelle. Stumbling through the rough of the forest, Nightmare finally caught up with the others as they crossed the bridge over a creek before crouching down. They were all following Chris's lead as Chris stared through the darkness at something. At first it looked like torchlight, contained in a long box shape, slowly fading. Then Nightmare realized as the others did. It's the door! Chris, wait! Said Birdley as Chris slipped from the brush, heading towards it. As they got closer, there was something so unnatural about it. A pair of double doors with perfectly straight ends and frame. It appeared to be some kind of red metal with little blemish, aside from the vines growing over it. One of the doors had been left cracked open, with what appeared to be a faulty locking mechanism. Chris only paused a moment before rushing inside. Chris, stop! Seriously! Said Susie as she stopped outside. Chris disappeared within. They all stared at the door, uncertain about following. So everyone else saw that torchlight too, right? Said Noelle. Which means someone else is in there besides Chris. What if it's a human? Said Birdley. Nightmare could smell the hint of something foul just beyond the threshold. If it's human, they might hurt them, said Susie. But I don't know what's come over them. Your cousin seems to know a lot of things they haven't told us, Nightmare grumbled. Susie locked her attention on Nightmare, as if she might try to fight his words, but she stuttered to say anything. Never mind. We need to get them back, dragging them if we have to, said Nightmare as he approached the door. As he went inside, the smell became overwhelming, rotten eggs and something else deep in decay. It was a long, mined-out tunnel. The tiniest amount of torchlight glowed at its ends as it turned to the right. That smell! Noelle pinched her nose. It's worse than 1,000 farts, said Susie. Hey, it's a mine! I was right, said Birdley. Nightmare shushed them. Do you want to get caught by a human? Just then they heard Chris screaming. Chris, come on! Cried Susie, running ahead. The others followed, readying their sticks to attack as their lizard friend had. The tunnel was a decent stretch to run, which curved, bearing deeper into the cliff. They could hear the voice of someone else as Chris cried out in struggle. So nice of you to show your face, Chris, or should I say determination, soul? As the 4 of them rounded the corner, they froze, looking at the scene upon them. A large chamber with a high-vaulted ceiling was dug out of the stone. Inside the stone, veins of gold glistened in the torchlight, further illuminating the chamber. At the center stretched the trunk of the sacred tree into the earth. Struck into it were several long metal pikes from which different-colored liquids bled from the tree's wounds. Rounding the base of the tree were countless stone slabs upon which were arranged the bones of equally countless human children. Chris's hat had fallen from their head. They were knocked to the ground, holding a knife in their hand, which they must have had hidden. But most shocking of all was the brown hair upon their head. Chris is a human? Noelle gasped. But they weren't alone. An armed human kicked the knife away from Chris's hand before putting his foot down on their back. Another reached down to grab them, lifting them up before putting a sword to their throat. Don't hurt them! Susie gave her best growl, lifting her stick. Let them go! There was one more human among them, one Nightmare couldn't forget, though he hoped to someday. The rounded form, the red robes, and the beard. Father Samuel gave a sinister and bellowed laugh.
Oh, is this your Calvary? Monster children. Chris, I should have known your mother would teach you such filth.
What have you done? Said Nightmare, staring past them. What was being done to their tree? The middle pikes, the colors, the bones. The bones. Skeletons, but not like him in Dream. These were not living skeletons. This place, so much death, so much pain. Nightmare felt himself sweating. The aura of this place was unclean.
Ah, Nightmare, isn't that what they're calling you? Said Father Samuel, hands behind his back. This is how we made you, how we birthed our God. But your birth is premature. Only with the final sacrifice of the determination soul will you truly be gods. Turning his face to Chris, he stepped forward, leaning towards the child enough to smell his breath. Fate would have it that you return to us exactly the right time. Now the ritual will be complete.
No, Nightmare growled, his grip tightening on his stick. I won't listen to this again. No one made us.
Oh, and where is your brother Dream? Said Samuel, lifting his head. It's strange you wouldn't bring him with you.
None of your business, creep, said Susie. Now let Chris go. We're going to kick your ass.
Susie, you said a bad word,
started Birdly.
I think we can make an exception, Birdly, she shouted.
Nightmare, don't you see? You and Dream were meant to be more, he said, holding out a hand. There's only one more sacrifice to make, and the both of you will be whole, more than monster, more than human. The both of you truly be gods, to rule over all existence. Wherever light or darkness touches, it will be at your command. All that's left is one last soul.
Nightmare could barely understand what Father Samuel was even attempting to offer him. As the blade pressed further to Chris's throat, their crimson eyes pled to Nightmare. Whatever this was, he knew he didn't want it. You heard what Sissy said. Let Chris go, said Nightmare. All the kids lifted their sticks, ready to fight. Very well. Then you'll get to watch your little friends die too, Father Samuel started to say before a shivering breeze passed over them from behind the children. Like a switch being flipped, the static filled Nightmare's skull once again. His spine went ice cold. Father Samuel. The prickling stings hit Nightmare's face as he turned his head. The spotted white light illuminated all the children as the glitching creature stood behind them. Noelle gasped, backing up into Susie and Birdly. The determination soul is no longer needed, uttered the creature. What do you mean? Clearly it is. Look at the state our Lord was born in. You promised us a human god which, human like us, said Father Samuel. His eyes widened as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. But as Father Samuel spoke, the creature focused its attention on Nightmare, the bony hands appearing, reaching down to grab him. No! Nightmare screamed. He swung his stick, knocking one hand aside, but another followed. Spreading out his arms, Nightmare willed something, anything to protect them. A flash of violet light, a spherical dome suddenly covered over Nightmare and his friends.
Whoa! A magic shield! Nightmare, you didn't say you knew magic, said Birdly.
I didn't know, Nightmare stuttered, feeling a great pressure pulsating through his arms. The creature gave a glitching laugh. It brought the tip of its fingers scratching and tapping at the shield, teasing him. That won't last for long. Father Samuel gave a smirk. I'm sure it won't. It would give us plenty of time to complete the ritual. No, said the creature, turning its attention upon the humans. The ritual is already complete. I need the determination soul for a different experiment. But wait, that wasn't part of the deal. You swore to complete the ritual as was arranged, said the priest, taking a step back as the creature drew closer, towering over them. The human that held Chris gritted his teeth, tightening his grip as he threatened to slice their throat. One of the creature's hands swung fast. In a spray of blood, the human's head was torn clean off. Chris screamed, falling as the body of the man fell on them. Within the shield, Noelle also cried out, covering her eyes. Squealing like a pig, the priest turned to run behind the trunk of the tree. The other guard attempted to strike the creature with his spear before a claw severed his hands from his wrists.
Falling back, the human screamed in horror, desperately trying to cover his open wounds as they bled out. Nightmare could hear the priest shivering, crying, pleading as the creature approached the tree before seeming to glitch through it to the other side. "Spare me! I've only ever done as you asked! I don't deserve to die!" "I never told you to kill children." Father Samuel's wails filled the chamber and inside each of their heads. The screams turned into repulsive gags as the blood ran out from behind the tree. As Chris pushed the corpse off them, they stood, putting their hands to Nightmare's shield. Nightmare dropped it as Susie reached out for Chris. "Are you all right?" "Never mind, Dad, let's run!" said Birdley. There was no argument. As the six of them ran for their lives, Nightmare tripped, feeling the energy drain from his skull once again. "Night!" cried Susie as he blacked out. When he came to, Nightmare felt his head bouncing against Susie's back. In her adrenaline, she had thrown him over her shoulder, running through the forest with the others. Then he stopped running as they came to the edge of the trees overlooking the village. I'm awake! Let me down!" said Nightmare as Susie did so. "The village!" Noelle cried. They were being attacked. Monsters fled westward into the forest as buildings were burned. The cries of monsters and humans and the clash of steel echoed on the smoky air. "We have to go westward," said Birdley, turning to the others. "There's a safe house where we're all taught to go in the case of a siege." The others nodded and started to turn that way, except for Nightmare. "Oh, wait! What about my brother?" He's sick! He can't run with the others!" The four of them looked uncertain, afraid. Their wide eyes showed that they'd seen enough horrors that night to fill their dreams for years to come. The distant screams made Nightmare feel there was no time to waste. He had to find his brother, with or without them. Nightmare ran into the open field, back towards the burning village. The smell of smoke was thick, even before he reached the street. Many of the monsters were still fleeing their homes, the crowd becoming more of a threat to Nightmare's progress than anything. Still, he weaved around them, taking the street he'd grown familiar to, racing back to Toriel's house. The heat hit his face like an inferno. Standing in the small yard, the home he and Dream shared those past 2 weeks was engulfed in flame. He stood still, staring at it, his mind going blank. Where was Toriel? Where was his brother? He knew when his brother was in pain, he could feel it, but he didn't feel anything. "Dream?" he cried out, tears in his sockets. "Nightmare." Gasping, he turned around. He hadn't heard the static over the roaring flames. The creature with the twisted eye hovered over him like a false god. 6 bony hands with holes in their palms circled around it. Nightmare stumbled back but tripped, trying to crawl away. He only felt the intensity of the flames grow greater. His bones stung from the heat over his clothes. "You belong to me," said the creature, drawing close again. "No! I belong to no one!" he cried. Throwing his hands, he tried to summon a blast of magic, but no magic came when he willed it. Tears streamed down his face, somehow burning the dry bone against his face. Was this it? Was this what being alive meant? To constantly be running or hiding, always fighting against anyone trying to own or define you? As the creature knelt down, about to seize him again, Nightmare's thoughts went to Dream. His brother didn't seem to experience this reality the way he did. He was always smiling so much, always curious, always ready for something new. But him? Well, if Dream wasn't there, he probably would have never crawled out of that tree. He'd been cautious, watchful, suspicious of everything around him. But when those golden eyelights met his own, Nightmare felt the courage to be something more. For a moment, Nightmare could smell the human blood coating the creature's teeth, its hands on his limbs and on his skull, preparing to fill him with the static again. Even then, he wouldn't stop thinking of his brother. It was worth it to be here with you. Just as his vision turned into the black and white snow, a blast of fire erupted against the back of the creature, the sound of it deafening Nightmare as he fell back. The creature wailed, arching its body high above him before more blasts of fire pushed it away. "Nightmare!" he heard Toriel's voice crack over the flames. In seconds, he saw the Goat Queen arching over him, Toriel and Dream still unconscious, swaddled to her chest. She scooped him up, laying him against her opposite his brother. There were dozens more voices rising up around them. Looking around, the creature spied several humans flanking it from all sides. They each wore different colored robes and pointed hats, armed with crystal staffs. "Vile witch!" cried out a human, donned in all red. "For your crimes against our people, we shall banish you to the deepest reaches of the nothingness." The creature, or witch, arched its head around and began to laugh. "Banish me? You shall try, but not succeed. I am eternal. My influence upon this reality shall stretch on long after your bones have become dust." "Everyone, now!" cried the red mage, holding up her staff. The others obeyed, raising their crystal staffs as blasts of chromatic magic hit the creature from all sides, its body writhing in agony, hands gripping its face. As the 7 colors of the mages surrounded it, a split in reality appeared. There was nothing beyond. Nothing. As the brilliant lights grabbed every hand and every limb of the creature, it was sucked into the split like a vacuum. With a loud, echoing clack, the split shut and the creature was no more. Nightmare could hear Toriel heaving, her gentle ball holding his head against her chest. Everything that had happened was too much to comprehend. Before darkness took him, Nightmare glanced at his brother's face, who seemed none the wiser. For Dream, Nightmare knew then that he would do anything, endure anything, to keep him safe.